Unscripted sounds dirty. Sorry, Tony. Hi, and welcome to Movie Phone. I'm Jamie Lee Curtis. This is David Gordon Green and Jason Blum, and we're here to talk to you about our new movie, Halloween. We'll answer a few questions that you sent in, and also that a couple are unscripted. And I get to start. Okay, David, this is from Jeremy on Twitter. What were the most important aspects of the original movie that you felt were essential to the new film other than Jamie and John Carpenter's involvement?
Well, you guys were certainly integral to the creative concept of what, but I think what really appealed to me about the original film that we tried to apply here is the simplicity, just the raw, primal essence of evil. Anything beyond that, I felt was going to narratively overcomplicate things. So I think our effort was to keep it streamlined, simple, and scary.
That opening sequence in the trailer, by the way, the first time I saw the trailer, with that footage, which I hadn't seen shot, of him in the mental hospital, that visually, graphically was so fantastic and sort of shocking to me. I loved it.
From Garret S in Pembroke, Georgia. Jamie, when first playing Laurie, did you ever imagine you'd be revisiting the character all of these years later?
I did not imagine it. You know, we made H2O because H2O was date-driven. Remember we were talking earlier about dates? Yeah. And it felt interesting to me that John and Deborah and I were still in show-off business, and it was 20 years later, and it felt like a good time to revisit it. Right. But I had never in my life thought that we would ever make a 40th. And I hadn't even really thought, oh wow, it's the 40th anniversary coming up, before I got the call from you last summer. Saying, and it had nothing to do with the 40th. Nothing. Except that within the story, Laurie was aware that it was the 40th. But in the sense, you didn't call me going, Jamie, David Gordon Green, it's the 40th, and we want to do it. You were, I've come up with an idea that I think you'll really respond to, which I did.
From Brandan V on Instagram, Jason, would you ever consider a crossover universe with another horror movie character such as Freddy vs. Jason? Hypothetically, who would you have face off against Michael Myers?
I suppose I would consider it, but I don't think I would do it. But if I was going to do a crossover, it would be Bagul from Sinister and Michael Myers. Okay. That would be a showdown.
So not the Leprechaun, then?
Not the Leprechaun.
Okay,
no,
not
I'd go for
Troll.
Bagul.
Okay.
I think Bagul didn't get enough airtime, and I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him face off. What was your favorite moment on the set of this of David's Halloween movie, and why was it your favorite moment?
Well, I think you know my answer, and it was.
I've forgotten. What is the answer?
It's all right. We met a couple times, by the way. I'm Jamie.
Yeah, Jason Blum.
Yeah, hi.
Great pleasure. Great
yeah,
pleasure.
Yeah, big fan. I was away from my home.
Right.
So I was already vulnerable. And, you know, the movie was very, very vulnerable for Laurie, because Laurie is really dealing with a lot of post-traumatic stress, and nobody understands her, and she's very alone. And the last shot we shot on the movie was this moment where Laurie is in her car by herself. It's sort of unscripted, meaning it's set that Laurie's in the car, there's alcohol, she has a gun, she's waiting outside the prison to watch Michael Myers be transferred out of that prison to go away forever. And for her, it's the first time she is seeing him in 40 years. And it's a very cathartic moment, but it's somewhat unscripted. And so I prepared for that day's work, and as I approached the set, where it's going to be me alone in a truck with 100 people with lights and cameras, I'm one of those people that at the first day of a movie, I like people to wear name tags, because it's not fair. You guys know my name. I don't know the camera operator, the sound, the boom. And so I always say, can you wear a name tag? The last day of the movie, I arrived on that set in an emotional state, because it was that moment that I was about to film. The entire crew had name tags on that said, "We are Laurie Strode." And what they were saying is that they were with me and her, because I am her. That they believed her, that they cared about her, that they are her. And that universality of support was the thing she had never had in her entire life.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was wildly emotional for me to see this crew saying to me, "We're with you," in that moment, as I was going to act that moment.
Yeah, of course.
And it was just very moving, very powerful to walk on. And by the way, with all due respect, we were on a street called Ashley Phosphate Road in, 12 miles outside of Charleston, South Carolina, in a parking lot of a truck factory. I mean, it was not, walking on the back lot of Universal. It was this, and it was at night. It was fascinating. Anyway, that moment was the single biggest moment where I really understood what Laurie was going through, what we were doing together as a movie, and it said a lot about the crew that David had put together to give me that gift. And then we took the crew picture, and in the crew picture, everyone is wearing a name tag that says, "We are Laurie Strode." And it very much brought up the whole Parkland, we are Parkland. We are, if we choose to as a group, we can face trauma together rather than having to be alone. And that's what they were saying. And it was just powerful. And I'm grateful for them.
Very nice. From Josh E. on Twitter, you spoke about having to go through 80 drafts of the script. Who did the majority of the screenwriting, and did the writing process feel different to writing a comedy?
80 drafts?
More than that.
I bet.
I do, drafts through the entire production, and part of my writing process is rewriting and evolving and learning once you've cast it, once you've got locations. So experimenting with ideas. So I wrote it with Danny McBride and Jeff Radley, two guys that I've been collaborating with since we were in film school in the 90s. And it is that creative energy. It is that auditioning content ideas, from dramatic endings to radical plot twists to role reversals within characters. And it is such a playful sculpture that I can't imagine going 2 days from conception to completion without a new draft, without going through it top to bottom and just re-engineering, reworking, challenging. It was all kind of hand in hand. We'd pass a scene, I'd do a scene and hand it to Jeff. Jeff would do a sequence, hand it to Danny. We'd rewrite each other's work and bring it to the group and say, how about this? We'd bring it to your amazing executives at Blumhouse and say, what do you think about this? We'd take it to rehearsals and we'd bring it to the cast and say, what do you think about this? Let's workshop it. Let's make it stronger. Let's poke all the holes in it that an audience or a journalist is going to poke in it months from now, and let's know what we're getting into and make it that type of process. And I'd say it's very much the same when we're working on comedic material, going for something internal that's from your gut, that's from your hip, that makes you feel like this is going to be fun to shoot, and I'm going to really like this, thinking that that's going to be an addictive quality and translate to the audience.
I will tell you this. When Jake Gyllenhaal called me to suggest that I talk to David, which is how we first spoke, he said to me, I've never had a more creative experience working, because he had done Stronger with you. And he said, he's just an inventive, fun director. And I think you'll have an amazing experience if you choose to work with him. And that's exactly how I would describe you. Inventive, fun, like you just said, poke holes in it. David would have us do scenes where we said gibberish. We would do takes where there wasn't a sentence. You would start a sentence and then stop it. And it was just so playful that it was an absolutely unique experience for me creatively, and I loved it. David to Jason, Unscripted.
All right. This is an opportunity to ask you the question I've always wanted to ask you.
Really? Oh, I can't
Is
wait.
there a project that you find so personal that you would make regardless of any commercial potential? Something that you want to make?
We've done many. We did a movie just this year, a documentary called This Is Home about refugees, which was not commercial, and we lost a little bit of money, but it was worth it. We're doing a movie called Stoner, which is one of Jamie's favorite
Seriously.
books and one of my favorite books, which we were not going to make a nickel on, but I love it. So we do a lot. We mostly do documentaries where we don't make any money, but we do a lot of. I think you have to make decisions. I think you have to kind of, we make decisions for both reasons. Some decision, I would never make a purely commercial decision because we would make a bad job on the movie. So I have to love the movie and it's commercial. And sometimes I love the movie and we know it's not commercial and we do that too.
From Sarah G.
Sarah, I know her.
Sarah G, yeah, how's she doing?
I know Sarah.
She's doing well, Seattle. How have you felt about Laurie being the face associated with the term Scream Queen and the horror film lexicon in general? Are you happy about yours and Laurie's contributions to that concept?
So I'm going to be 60, Sarah, coming up in November on Thanksgiving.
Wow.
I will have a lot to be thankful for, that's for darn sure. And one of the things I remember is that, Halloween was my first movie. I was 19 years old. And I had been on a TV series prior to that, where I was one of like a sea of people with like one line a week. And here was a script that was all Laurie. And as what happens in our industry, you work really hard to try to get noticed. It's show-off business. We are performers. And so I have always felt great affinity toward the idea that someone would call you a queen of anything. To call you a Scream Queen means you have somehow risen to the highest of echelon within a certain genre. And even though it happened to me when I was very young, no matter what, it still gave me something that was, I couldn't believe how thrilled I was about it. So for me, that has always been something I've been proud of. The only reason I stepped away and tried to make comedy movies and other things is because I also wanted to be able to do other things. But I've never dissed the Scream Queen title because, again,
Who doesn't want to be a queen?
Who doesn't want to be
just
the
like me.
head of
Horror
something?
king, every so often. I love it.
Who doesn't want, that's what we wanted when we were all making
That's why
Halloween
we
to begin with.
Exactly.
So it's a weird thing to somehow not like the coat we're wearing when it was a coat that we
chose to put on.
Chose it and sewed it and,
Right.
So I've tried to be really respectful to the whole horror genre. I credit it with my life. Obviously, my creative life is directly responsible to the movie Halloween. And everything that came after that is sort of, has, you know what I mean?
It resulted from it.
Without question.
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful to be a queen.
Jason to David Unscripted. Let's see, David.
It's like playing Truth or Dare.
I know.
Okay, how about
Except
this?
not really, because
Yeah.
we're not really.
What was the single hardest moment during the course of making Halloween, and why? Not just the production, by the way. It could be it could be any of it.
Not far off. The hardest thing about making a movie, and as this movie is a very limited budget movie with a lot of ambition and tremendous creative energy, the hardest thing is acknowledging the budget, the schedule, the safety, and the logistics in trying to accomplish, making sure you go home feeling great about your day,
Right.
but being able to accomplish things safely. And that means the crew needs to be prepared and have time in their and it's really difficult when you're racing against the clock and you're trying to save every dollar because you want to put every dollar on the screen.
Sure.
To keep in mind the fact that it needs to be done professionally and safely. And so there was a night where things became very difficult to achieve what we needed to do and expedite in the time that we had and to do it with a reasonable amount of precaution. And it was very frustrating for me to have to make those decisions very quickly. What do you compromise? Time, quality, safety.
Right.
Uh,
That's interesting.
And those are
Triangle.
Oh, it's just the ethical, moral things that you can't justify in an interview 6 months later to an audience a year later.
Yeah, right.
Why it didn't achieve perfection.
Right.
So you've got to get
You can't tell the audience this is what was happening when we shot it.
exactly. You can't. Nobody cares about the personalities and the logistics that are going
Or
on.
the safety.
Or the safety.
Or the lightning storm
Or the
that
light- yeah.
hits,
Right.
that eats 3 hours
100%.
of your night.
Right. Right.
So you lose 3 hours because
Right. Of the
God
sky.
decides to rain on your parade a
Right.
little.
Right.
You know.
Thank you, Jason and Jamie, and thanks to Movie Phone for having us. Thanks to all of you for watching and sending in your questions. Go see our movie Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.